If your business is making less than 10 grand a month, the real issue probably isn't what you think it is. You're about to get a behind the scenes peek at a private workshop that I ran, breaking down the exact system that real business owners are using to scale to six figures and beyond. The good news, there's only 7 things that you need to do, and you're about to find out what they are. Enjoy. There we go. Well, thank you very much. Good morning. Welcome. So I'm a bit nervous today. This is my, I'm making my debut on this stage. So it's the first EC Plus workshop that I've run. This event is all about getting to 6 figures. And as I sat down to kind of prepare the content for this, I took a little bit of a liberty, and I have reframed the title of the day. Okay, and in my head, and I think it's a bit easier to, because it just breaks it down a little bit. And obviously, 10 grand a month for a year is 120 grand, which is technically that's beyond 6 figures, because 6 figures is 100 grand. Now, the other element of this is, we are entrepreneurs, so we get to choose our own. We get to set our own rules for success. We get to set our own goals. And when we conceived this event, because there's a 7-figure event and there's an 8-figure event, so there's 6, 7, 8, they're little sets. And when we conceived it, what we were focused on was turnover, effectively. Getting the business to 6-figure business the turnover is between £100,000 a year and £999,000 a year. The minute you go above that, you're a 7-figure business with £1 million turnover, up to £9,999,000 turnover. And then when you get beyond that, you get to become an 8-figure business. This last 12 months, that's been territory that I have rediscovered. I had an 8-figure business once before. It was in 2015, but since then I've been a 7-figure business until the last 12 months. And now we're an 8-figure business again. We'll do about 12 million this year. And so there's different things. It's a different journey. It's like anything else in life. It's like GCSE maths. Well, it's true. At the end of the day, that GCSE maths is like 6 figures. A-level maths is like 7 figures. You can go do maths at university, you do a degree, it's 8 figures. It's just all kind of relative. So, but for today, just to be really clear, this is about getting to 10 grand a month. And when I'm conceiving the content, what I'm focused on is getting to 10 grand a month in terms of turnover. And then I saw the list of people who were coming. And I know some of you in this room, and there are some people in the room who have got businesses that are already above 6 figures. So I'm thinking, oh shit, have I said the wrong thing on the blurb? Like, why are they coming? They've already achieved the objective. The implementation, one level will be very easy, but I don't want people to be disappointed. So if you've already got a 6-figure business, then we can start to think today, because the principles are the same, but we can start to think about profit levels. So this is like getting us to 10 grand a month. And in that regard, and whether you're applying it to turnover or indeed to profit, okay, and I say this in a very positive way to encourage you, okay, because the good news is getting to 10 grand a month, whether we're talking turnover, because you're a relatively new business starting out, or you're established and your focus now is about profitability. And I genuinely promise you this is true, okay? It's easy. And of all the things that we are covering in all these EC Plus events, getting a business to 10 grand a month is the easiest thing to do. And I need you just to pause and land and reflect on that. And some of you are thinking now, well, it's all well for you to say that, Nige. I've been trying for X number of months or X number of years, and I'm finding it bloody difficult. And if that is the case, I absolutely respect, your experience and the situation that you're in right now. But it becomes critically important that you clear your mind and that you pay really close attention today, because that is not a subjective statement, as I will demonstrate and show to you. Getting a business to 6 figures, there's only one tiny proviso on it. You do have to choose the right business, okay? If you want to make handmade soaps from the remnants of discarded chair covers, if your business is so obscure there's no market, I'm not saying that any business, but if you've picked a business that's viable, getting it to 6 figures is easy. Okay, and I've chosen those words really carefully, and I want them to land properly and deeply with all of you. Okay, and hopefully what happens then is you're, oh, this is good then. I'm glad I've come today, because I'm going to map it out for you. And if you end up getting stuck anywhere, not just today, but subsequently when you go away and implement this, if you end up getting stuck and you can't get beyond, how do I get beyond $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever you're at on the way to $10,000 a month? I promise you the problem at that point is with you, and you need to come back to us and you need to let us help you get unstuck, because getting to $10,000 a month is easy. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a sense and a feel, and we'll throughout the day, others that we haven't spoken to, we'll get a chance to learn a little bit about you. But I want to make sure the day is effective, so that was a chunk of time we had allowed for doing that here. So the good news is, as far as getting to £10,000 a month, whether it's turnover or profit, in truth, the kind of you have to just interpret a little bit differently, but the fundamentals are the same. And the good news is there is only 7 steps, and the news gets even better. All right, because 2 of those steps at least don't require any physical, manual or technical labour at all. They just require you to think properly and accurately about what you're doing. And we can all think, can't we? So let me get into the 7 steps. And it's why, again, what I deliberately did, and Andy was a little bit nervous about this, but I've assured him it will all be fine. Because on every other EC Plus event that's run so far, people have gone away with a workbook. There's a printed workbook that they come along with, and the all gets filled in, and they take it away. And you've got a single sheet of A3 paper today. And that is very deliberate, all right? And it goes back to my key point from this first half hour, that getting to £10,000 a month is easy. And it's so easy, you don't need a workbook. You just need a single sheet of A3 paper. See, so this is very deliberate. This isn't me. I've not been lazy. I'm not skimping on print costs. So I've done the work. All you need is these 7 steps. The only reason it's an A3 sheet of paper is because I've used big fonts, as it were, and given you a bit of space to write. This is not a complex thing, and I hope that in many ways that the biggest value for many of you today, because there's a few of you in here that have got a lot of experience and have been in business for quite a while, and I hope the simplicity of these steps is actually the most useful thing for you. It may, at the beginning, your brain may repel against that. Well, it can't be that easy, and I've been trying for all this time. But like so many things in life, not just business, but all aspects of life, I was chatting to someone yesterday who is a really accomplished baker, okay? She's so accomplished. She was very disappointed yesterday, that's why I was talking to her. But she was hoping to be on Bake Off this year, and she got to the last 50. She was really disappointed yesterday because she found out she's not on the programme, and she didn't get to the final, the final few that are going on. But she's like this majorly accomplished baker, and when you see the stuff that she does, it's like amazing. I thought, oh my God, that's incredible. And she says to me, "Oh, right, it's really quite easy." And this is like anything. We've all got things that we do, whatever it may be, that we find easy because we know how to do it, and we've done it before, and we've done it regularly and frequently, and to us it becomes easy. And which is, I guess, where I am really in terms of getting a business to 10 grand. Okay, it's kind of easy. And what I want to try and do today is metaphorically, let's bake a cake, because it's no harder than that. It's no harder than we've all. Anyone here hasn't passed a driving test? We can all drive a car, yeah. And we all, when you think back, in those early days when you were kangarooing up the road, having just taken my 4th child through that kind of that journey of learning to drive a car. In the beginning, it was like really, and you get to, oh my God, I'll never do this, and there's probably a few tantrums and things. But it was difficult in the very beginning, right? But actually now it's just easy, isn't it? you wouldn't think twice. Just get in the car and drive wherever you want to go. It's easy, and that's the journey we're on today. We're going to make it easy, and there's 7 steps that you need to think about. And the first step, drum roll please, number 1, is going to massively underwhelm you, okay? But it's a really important foundation block. Oh my God, Jonathan's getting ready to take the picture. Doesn't want to miss it. I'm going to leave it on the screen for ages, Jonathan. But this is step number 1, and this is really important, okay? And I'm not going to dwell too long on it today, and I hope we can get past it quite quickly, but it is really important, and only you will know the extent to which you fully embrace and get this, okay? But if you want to get a business, your business, to 10 grand a month, the first step is to recognize, not just accept, but embrace. So you recognize, accept, and embrace the fact that your success on this journey is all your fault. Okay, that's not a gag. Okay, I'm glad it made you titter, and that's a nice thing, but I promise you, there is a reason. Everything we've done in this building, there's a reason behind it. Okay, when people come in my mastermind groups, I give them a guided tour of the building, and I point out, because you can see what we've done, what may sometimes not be obvious is why we've done it. Okay, and case in point, and you've all walked past that today, that is literally just down there. It's like 10 yards away. But like, why is that so big? Why have we taken like this nearly 20 foot, that graphic? It's a huge graphic. You know, like, why have we done that? You know, and it's worthy of some thought because, you know, I've been helping people build their businesses for 15 years now. And this is a really important foundation block. You know, there are 2 other big graphics on this ground floor, which again, would be worthy to pay attention to. Oh, why has Nigel put that so big in this building? Because there's a reason for it. But this is step number 1 to get into 10 grand a month. It is all your fault. As a business owner, you are 100% responsible for where your business ends up. And your ability to, it's one thing to, in a room like this, to kind of nod and accept that. But actually the trick that makes the rest of the journey easy is to just embrace that. And there's a few little tools and things that over the years that I've acquired that you might find helpful here. And I don't need anyone to share any particular challenge because, listen, bad stuff happens to all of us. I've had a slightly emotional, it's not quite the right word, but a very poignant few days because the 15th of June, which is 4 days ago, that was Sunday just gone, was the 15th of June. And the 15th of June 2015, so 10 years ago, was the worst day of my business life. Because on the 15th of June 2015, I signed the papers that took Entrepreneur Circle into what's called a CVA, a Creditors Voluntary Arrangement. And I came perilously close in 2015 to losing everything that I'd built. And I set up in business in 2003. So I was 12 years in 2015. And I almost lost everything. The story's for another day. I've told the story many times. There's stuff out there. But it was really interesting because it was the 28th of May this year, so like 2 weeks earlier, that we completed the purchase of like this building, like this amazing building. And we've got all these workshops running. I've got this fantastic team of people. And it's just been, I think poignant is the right word really, because that's, you know, I've not got emotional about it, but I have just, that's an interesting journey. And someone asked me, so 10 years ago, would you have imagined that your business would be like in a building like this with the team that you've got? And my answer was, well, it's not, can I change the question? Because 11 years ago, I absolutely would have pictured that. This was absolutely where we were heading. It's absolutely what it was all about. But 10 years ago, I was in complete despair. I mean, there was one morning in particular when I could not see how I was going to get out of this. And I left work, ostensibly to drive to work. I couldn't go to work. I parked my car in a car park, and I cried my eyes out. I did not know how I was going to get through this. And what got me through it, and I wouldn't trade anything, by the way, because the old adage about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is definitely true in business. I am so much more competent and capable and accomplished because of what I went through than if I'd never gone through it. So so we should, all of us, kind of own and embrace, the things that we've got to. But this was the thing for me. This was the thing. I'm the first person in my family to own their own business. My dad was a policeman. None of my family run their own businesses. They're all good employees. Many of them have worked for many, many years for. My uncle works for the water, Yorkshire Water, and he's very proud of that and stuff. And so I'm a big outlier in that regard, running my own business. All my friends, because you tend to meet friends that do what you do and stuff, and none of my friends ran their own businesses back when I started out. And in many ways, my biggest driver through all that, through all the difficult times in particular, when push came to shove, what drove me wasn't actually the things I wanted and the aspirations, it was the things I needed to avoid. And what drove me when push came to shove was what I wanted to avoid was the shame and humiliation that I would have felt if I had failed. And when things got really dark and got really tough, it was that fear, there's no way I'm letting that happen. There's no way they are. Because a lot of people told me I had a very successful corporate career. And when I had to do my own business, people said I was bonkers and irresponsible. I think it's irresponsible. You've got a young family. You shouldn't be doing this. And there was no way I could let them win. And this acceptance and embracing of the fact that it's all your fault, once you do, it becomes like the most liberating thing. Fuck, it's all on me. All of a sudden, doesn't matter. Nobody else matters. The bank manager doesn't matter. Rachel fucking Reeves doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. It's on you. And we're getting to 10 grand a month of revenue or profit. I promise you it's easy, providing this first step is in place. And you've got to embrace and recognise that it is on you. And if things don't work out, it's not the market's problem, it's not the economy's problem, it's not your customers' problem, it's not your staff's problems. And I recognise these are all real factors, but there's ways of dealing with them. And deal with them we must if we're going to get to where we want to get to. So this is why it's step one, and it's an easy step, because there's no work to do other than occasionally maybe giving yourself a good talking to and a good reminder of it. And there's a little tool that I discovered a little bit by accident, really, and I have to be careful when I explain this to people, especially people that I don't know very well, because sometimes, once in particular, this was very misconstrued. And so I want to try and explain it to you because I think you'll find it very, very helpful. So, and what I'll do, we'll do it real. I need a volunteer. Who's going to volunteer for me? No, it's still fine. I just need a volunteer. No one's going to volunteer. Craig, I appreciate that, Craig. Craig was just there before you, just in, so we haven't spoken to Craig yet. So I appreciate you volunteering, Craig. Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Craig, quite personal questions. If you could be honest with me, that would be helpful. Okay, Craig, are you married? Yeah. Excellent. Okay, what's your wife called? Grace. Grace. Oh, lovely name. Okay, and any children? Two. Okay. Their names are? Emma and Edward. Emma and Edward. Okay, brilliant. Emma and Edward. Okay, so are we going to focus, Craig, on Grace or Emma and Edward? You get to choose?
Emma and Edward.
Emma and Edward, brilliant. Okay, how old are Emma and Edward?
Emma's 4 and Edward's 18.
Fucking perfect, Craig. Honestly, for what I'm about to do, that is absolutely fucking perfect. Thank you for volunteering. I am very grateful. It certainly wasn't, but you have handed me the perfect little example for what we're about to do, okay? Now, just to be really clear, Craig, okay, you look like you're a very switched on, capable, confident guy, okay? So we're just hypothecating now, right? We're going to play a little game. It may be mentally, momentarily uncomfortable for you, Craig, okay? This is a good thing, and everyone else in the room will appreciate it, all right? So Emma and Edward, okay, I want you to think about this, Craig. Just before I go there, just to make it even more real, very briefly about your business. What do you do?
Bathroom fitter.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's okay. So do you supply?
No, just install.
Right. Okay. All right. So interesting there. Okay, bathroom installer. Okay. And where's the business at now, roughly?
280k a year.
Okay.
Focus on profit.
So it's all about focus on profit. Okay. Lovely. Okay. And you're not yet at 10 grand a month profit. Right. Okay. Cool. Okay. So I want you to just now we'll go to Emma and Edward now for a moment or two. Okay. Just round this corner here. There's a little cupboard. You need a key to get into it, okay? But it's when you actually walk in there, you can see what the cupboard is because it's the size of this triangle here, okay? And it's where all the guts of the AV system are, okay? So, and this is important. So can you see this little cupboard here? It's not very big. It's quite tall, but it's not very big, okay? And there's no windows in there, there's no light in there. It's a dark place, okay? But you can get in through the cupboard here. And certainly if you're 4 years old or 18 months old, because they'll be toddling around now, Edward, yeah, so yeah, absolutely. They could get in that cupboard, Craig, okay. Now, I want you to just visualise with me for a moment or two, okay? And this is the difficult bit. I've got to do this hopefully in the right way. We're just hypothecating, okay? But I want you to imagine, Craig, just for a moment, okay, that some horrible, nasty person has got Emma and Edward, and they have put them in that cupboard, okay? And the only way they're coming, there's nothing in there, Craig, there's no... they're getting a bit of water, but this is a miserable fucking existence, okay? And they're in that cupboard. And the only way they're getting out of that cupboard, Craig, is when you get 10 grand a month of profit.
You find a way.
That's my point. That is my point. And that's why it's actually a really useful little exercise. And the way I use it for me, and I have a photograph, I should put it on a slide. There's a photograph on the wall in my office. And it's been with me for 15 years, this photograph, and it's a family. I've got 4 kids, and this picture was taken in 2011 in Yosemite National Park in California, and we went and did a big road trip around California as a family. And Fabian is my youngest son. Now he's 19 now. Okay, he's 19 now, and but in this picture, because it's like 14 years ago, so he's all cute and cuddly, so he's about the same age as your daughter, yeah? And he's on this picture, as are my other kids and me and Sue. And the picture was taken, a little snap by a German tourist who happened to be walking past. And so we'd like to take a picture. And this picture, it's one of those amazing pictures. It looks fantastic. And it's such a lovely picture that on Christmas morning, the following Christmas, and when Sue and I were exchanging gifts, I'd got an artist to paint the picture. So I gave her this beautiful kind of watercolour picture that's been painted of our family, and she got me this big canvas of the photograph. So we got each other the same gift. It's such a lovely picture. Okay, and I brought the canvas to work, and the canvas has hung on the wall in my office right opposite my desk. Okay, so if I'm sat at my desk, the picture is there. And I've used that picture. It's a big picture. The canvas is kind of, probably 3 foot square. And I've used that picture because whatever challenge I'm facing in my business, I can turn it mentally in my head into a decision that between that thing and Fabian, his cutest and cuddliest kind of 5-year-old self as he is in that picture. Does that make sense? And you can use this and you can channel it, because when you've got young kids, they're like the most powerful driver, for most of us. So if you had to do X, or Emma and Edward died, fucking hell, Nige, could you? Well, the answer is,
Cool.
you'd find a way. Because it's easy to build a business for 10 grand a month. And this is because we have to sometimes play tricks to ourselves mentally. And sometimes, because we, at the end of the day, what I know, and you as well know to some extent here, the reason why your business is not at 10 grand a month of profit or 10 grand a month of turnover, you're not getting there, for kind of everyone in the room, at some point, you've made some bad decisions. You've either done some things that you shouldn't have done, or you've not done things that you should have done. And sometimes we're going to try and give you a structure and a framework today to make better decisions and to know where to focus, where to put things on. And then when temptation comes along, to pull you away or distract you from those things, that little mental trick, and for me, it was having that photograph on that wall, and it was there. I had to walk, I couldn't avoid it. The minute I learned, my head comes up, that picture's there. If I walk out with the picture's there, it's been omnipresent for 15 years. Because like lots of us, my drive, the only purpose of my business in the beginning was to provide for me and my family. And it's done that really, really well. And there's other purposes now, because you have to get beyond that. There always has to be something. And it's all about impact now, making a difference. And it's really important, and legacy comes into play. But in the beginning, it was all about looking after and providing for that family and giving them the life and the lifestyle that I wanted. And that little technique, because for many a times I've imagined Fabian, trussed up in a cupboard, unless I do that thing. And so I just share it with you as a little tool, and I appreciate you. Very grateful for you to volunteering. Thank you very much for that. Just into thinking, thank God they didn't pick me. Which is it was a perfect. It was a perfect example. So there we are. Step number 1. It's all your fault. That's all you got. You can scribble it down on your on the sheet if you want to do that. Look, we put a little picture in there. And step number 1 is all your fault. Everything else will come back to that. If you lose sight of that, if only my staff did what I told them, if only I could get £5,000 to spend on this, everything would be different. Again, it's all your fault. It's all your fault, okay? And it just plays around, and you'll find when you look anywhere you look, and you find anyone that's built a sustainably successful business, they've embraced the responsibility of it. And for me, it's like the most liberal. I fucking love it. I just love it that there is nobody else in the world, there's no one on this planet that can knock me off course. It's down. I'll find a way. Bad stuff will happen. I'm pretty close. CVA. That's big shit. But we got in there. We dealt with it. We sorted it. By the way, the CVA, for those that don't know the full story, but in a nutshell, a lot of money went missing from my business, and the CVA was predominant with HMRC. There were some other creditors as well, and the deal was that everyone would be paid back over 5 years, and we actually paid everybody back in just over 4 years. And so whilst the 15th of June 2015 is seared onto my brain, so is the 8th of October 2019, and hung up on the wall in my office is the certificate of completion of our CVA. From October 2019, and we came through it, and then we've kicked on and we've built on it since. So it has a happy ending, but only because other things happened, but underpinning all of it was that acceptance of responsibility. That it was all my fault. We'll do step number 2, and then we'll take a little break. So step number 2 is a little bit more practical, and these steps they are in order. Okay? There's a chronology. That's why they've got arrows between them. There is a chronology to these steps, and this one gets a little bit more. This is practical. This will require a bit of work, and ideally, we'll be able to get at least a version of this work done whilst you're here today. Okay, It requires a knowledge of your numbers, but we can do that pretty straightforwardly. So step number 2, to get to 10k a month, whether it's revenue or profit, you get to choose. All we've got to do is work out how many sales do we need on a monthly basis to get to, in this case, 10 grand a month. So Graham will know, he can work out how many pupils have to be coming through his centre to chuck off enough money for Graham to take his 10 grand a month profit. Michelle will know in her salon how many customers have to come through that salon on a monthly basis to chuck off enough money for 10 grand of profit. Or 5 grand a month profit, if you would start, just to be clear, because we all get to choose what success looks like. If you're working really hard and not getting paid, then frankly, 5 grand a month is pretty life-changing. So and easier to get to than 10, and to get to 10 you've got to get past 5, so we might as well start there. So I'm just work it through, but we're going to work out how many sales you need, and we'll do this afternoon, and that's why we put the homework sheet out, and some of you will find this more easy than others. One of the concepts that people struggle to get their heads around, I do find maths was one of my favourite subjects at school. I did enjoy maths. I left school after, they were called O-levels in my day, but GCSEs now. I never did A-levels, never went to university. But I did enjoy school, and school was fine. I had a very happy time at school. But maths was one of my topics, and I enjoyed maths. And you don't realise at the time, but I think that's quite helpful. It's definitely helped me a little bit. I have an affinity with numbers that I know a lot of people don't have. I'm very comfortable with numbers, and some people are not. It's not your natural space, and I do recognise that is the case. There's kind of good news and bad news here. You can't sustainably build a business without getting a level of comfort with your numbers. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to, go and take big qualifications and, an MBA or anything like that at all. You don't need to take a bookkeeping class, but you do have to get comfortable with certain principles and numbers in a business. And one of them is the concept of averages. Okay? Now, not being patronising, but would anyone like to just describe to the room what an average is? Okay, I'll do it. Okay, so what is an average? All you do is you take the total. So let's just look at this side of the room here. So what have I got? I've got 4 on that row. I've got 6. That's 10. I've got 4 there. That's 14. And I've got 3 there. So I've got 17 people on this side of the room. Okay. So if I asked you, I'm not going to do this at all. I'm just making this up. If I asked you all to make a donation, okay, to a charity right now, and I went round with the hat, and you all put some money or not in the bag, okay, and I came back here, and I looked at the bag, and I opened the bag up, and I've got £170 in the bag, okay, what's the average donation? £10. Easy. That's what an average is, okay? But what people say is, I say to people, okay, what's your average? I could say to Michelle, and I will in a minute, so you can work this out, I'll give you the time. So I'll say to Michelle, what's your average customer spend when they come into your salon? And what people typically say in answer to that question, and you'll be staggered, and I've heard this, literally 1,000 times over the years, I say, what's your average customer spend? And they say, oh, it varies. No, it fucking doesn't. And that's the first principle of the maths. Genuinely, it's not a gag, it fucking doesn't. There is an answer. And in the example I gave you, the answer, the average donation was £10. That does not mean that everybody gave £10, okay? Jonathan was very generous. He put £100 in the bag, okay? Jacinta, not as, but times are hard, she snuck a £5 in there, okay? Michelle, making no money, put her hand in the bag, but she passed the bag, didn't put any donation in the bag, okay? I'm making it all up, I'm not coming for you, it's just an example, okay? £100, £5, no pounds. The average was fucking 10, okay? Every business has an average. Every business has an average. Stephen, across the course of the year, you're probably interested, I see, but some people will have bigger bathrooms fitted, and the amount they pay you will be more because there was more work and the project went on longer. Am I right? Yeah. And some jobs are really straightforward, and they're really short and they're quick and they're easy and the price they pay you is less. So we know for every business that what an individual customer spends varies. We absolutely get that. You don't need to tell Andy or me that or anybody else that ever. Okay, but what you do need to understand is, well, what's the average? And the way you work out the average isn't by you thinking about it, thinking, oh well, on average, because you'll get it wrong. Okay, and there's an answer to this, and the answer is really straightforward. And you go into your bookkeeping system, and you look at what was our revenue over a period of time. Could be a month, could be a year. The longer the period, the more robust the answer is typically. So ideally, you'd look at a year. So you'd say, well, in Stephen's case, you say, well, in the last 12 months, my revenue was 60 grand, and I'm making these numbers up now. 60 grand customer revenue came in, and I did 12 jobs. So my average is £5,000 a job. Now, it may be that no single customer paid him 5 grand, but collectively his 12 customers paid him 60, and there was 12 of them, so the average is 5. Does that make sense? And you've got to get comfortable with this. It'll be tricky for you because you've got high volumes of customers coming in the salon. You've got more customers than Craig's got, for instance, because he's fitting bathrooms, so a customer takes days, whereas it takes hours or portions of hours for you, so you've got more customers, so the maths are different, but we've got to get comfortable with averages, okay, of what's coming in. That's the first thing we've got to get clear on, so we know what an average customer spends. Now the next bit we've got to do, we can't do this collectively as kind of 30 of us at the same time, but the next thing we've got to know is we've got to know what our gross margin is. Okay, and this is where it gets a little bit challenging. It's not difficult, but this is where we've got to master going from first gear to second gear. That's what we got. This is metaphorically what we're doing when understanding gross margin, and it'll be different in different businesses. There are costs that are fixed regardless of how much you sell, and there are costs that change depending on how much you sell. That's probably a writer downer because it's going to really help you to get to 10 grand. Okay, so there are costs that are fixed no matter how much you sell, and there are costs that change depending on how much you sell. Does that make sense? So in my business here, a little example, for instance, so our business rates on this building are fixed, okay? Doesn't matter whether I sell £10 million a year or £100 million a year, my business rates are the same. Okay, the business rates are calculated by the council. I mean, they change every year for sure, but they're fixed for 12 months. We know what it is. It's a fixed cost. It'll be the same for you. Things like rent, the vehicle leases, fixed costs, things that you've committed to, whether you sell a lot or a little or nothing at all. You've got some costs that are not, the costs don't change no matter how much you sell. So your fixed costs. Then you've got other costs that do change depending on how much you sell. So in Graham's business as a tuition centre, this is an interesting one. So obviously there'll be some costs for his rent, and he's got to put the lights on and stuff, and we're not going to get, I know technically if he's open more hours his electricity bill might go up, but we're not going to get into that level of detail at this point. We're chasing 10 grand a month of profit. So his electricity bill is fixed, his rent is fixed, his insurances are fixed, that sort of thing are fixed there. And but what will change in Graham's business will be how many teachers he needs. He pays teachers by the hour to run his lessons or to provide the tuition. And obviously, if he's got 100 pupils in this week, his teaching cost will be this much. If he's got 300 pupils in this week, his teaching cost will be this much. So his teaching costs change depending on how many people he's teaching. Now, there's a little bit of a grey area here with Graham because it depends how he employs his teachers, because he might have committed to his teachers. He might have committed a certain number of hours. So on this cost is fixed because if I don't get the pupils, I've still got to pay the teachers. Well, in which case they become a fixed cost, if that's the case. Ideally, for Graham, there's some level of flexibility there, and he's employing teachers when he's got work for them, and he's not employing, but we start to kind of work it through. So we need to understand the difference between the two. Now, gross margin comes from the percentage of a sale. That's what gross margin is. It's the percentage of a sale that is needed to cover the costs of that sale. Okay, so in very simple terms, when I'm talking about this, if I was selling pink chairs, okay, and if I sell that pink chair to Lauren, okay, it's £100 that chair, Lauren, okay, it's £100 chair, so I'm going to sell it for, costs me £40, okay. So in that scenario, Lauren, and if you need help, that's fine, people will help you out. But so I sell it for £100 to you, it cost me 40. What is my gross margin? £60, okay? Or in this case, 60%, because we made it really easy. Does that make sense? So your gross margin is the percentage that's left over from a sale or from an average sale. So it's what's left over when I've covered the costs that are just associated with that. Now, it's not £60 of profit, just to be clear, okay? Although accountants sometimes call it gross profit, but that's a bit from our perspective, because I've still got to pay, my costs of storing that and transporting it or whatever. I've got other costs. I've got my receptionist who looks after, so I've got some fixed costs. So from the £60 of gross margin, I've got to cover my fixed costs. So I don't end up with £60, but it's important to understand the two things, particularly when we're chasing, for those of you in the room that are chasing 10 grand a month of profit, because you're chasing 10 grand a month of net profit. So money left over when we've paid all our fixed costs and we've paid all our variable costs, there's got to be 10 grand a month left over. And to work out, first thing, how many sales we need to get to that point, what we've got to understand is our gross margin. And I hope I'm explaining this well enough. I'll take questions and I'll go through it in a minute so it's just not clear. Because here's the next really big principle, and this this was and for a lot of people, when the penny finally drops and they get this, this is the thing that unlocks the door to a much bigger business, okay? Because once a business is at or above break even, do we all understand what break even means? Yeah? So a business that's at break even doesn't make a loss and it doesn't make a profit, okay? Its revenue is equal to all its costs, whatever costs those are. So the money comes in and it all goes out again and there's nothing left over. You're nodding. I'm just thinking, yeah, that's us. That's exactly what happens. The money comes in and it all goes out again. There's nothing left for us. And if that's the case, then that's a business that is at break even. Okay? And break even, just to be clear, break even is not a disastrous place to be. Okay? If I use in metaphors again, you know, if you're in the ocean, you know, with a really big life jacket, okay, all right, you ain't going to die soon. Okay? You're not going to sink. It's going to keep you afloat. Yeah, you're going to bob around, you know, for quite a long time is the truth of it. Well, it is true. It genuinely is true. You know, and there are some amazing stories of people surviving in the ocean for huge amounts of time, if it's the right ocean at the right time of year and stuff, because they're not going to sink, because they've got the life jacket that keeps them afloat. And when you're at break even, that's where you're at, okay? You're not making any money. It's, you know, life's not pleasant and difficult, you know, but you're not dying either. So break even, it's not a disastrous situation. It's not a desirable situation, but it's not a disaster. But here's the thing. Once you are at break even or better, so all your costs have been covered at break even. Obviously, if it's better than that, there's some profit left over, that's a fantastic place to be. But once you're at break even or better, all your gross margin, Lauren, goes straight to the bottom line. So if this is the 101st chair that I've just sold to you for £100, okay, and the other 100 chairs that I've covered, first of all, have covered all my fixed costs, they've covered all my rent and all my overheads are all covered, then that 101st chair that I sell to you, Lauren, that £60 of gross margin goes straight to the bottom line because there's no other fixed cost for it to cover. And so people have a business and they think, you know, they're working really hard. And again, I'm making these numbers up, but you know, in Michelle's salon, I don't know, ballpark, how many customers a week have you got coming in, roughly? Just roughly.
About
No, in the salon overall, roughly. Across a week.
well, if I just go the other one, it's 120.
All right, okay, a week. Okay, so Lauren's got 120 customers a week coming in, okay, and she's chasing 10 grand a month. Now, if we just assume for a minute, which I'm not doing, and we must go and look at this carefully, but if we assume for a minute that what you've said, Michelle, is right, that you're literally at break even, all right, the business is not dying, you're paying your bills, but you're not getting any money on 120 customers. What a lot of people instinctively think is that for you to get to 10 grand a month of profit, or even 5 grand, oh my God, we're going to have to like double the numbers coming to the business. It's not true. Okay, now in your business, I want to make sure I try and explain this well enough. So I'll try and give you a better example that you will be able to relate to, but will help for others, and it's a real example. So I had two cousins join Mastermind about 4 years ago, and they run a little small chain of 3 opticians in East Anglia. Okay, so the big centres in Norwich, and they've got 2 other locations in the county. And they had acquired this business, and they joined Mastermind because they had to generate £250,000 of surplus cash by the end of that first year, because they had a final payment to make to the previous owners of the business. And they came to Mastermind because whilst the business was in a decent place, it was making some money, they were taking decent salaries out of it, but they couldn't see how they were going to generate this £250,000 that they needed by the end of the year to pay off the previous owners. And that's why they came into Mastermind. And what we did is essentially exactly what we're doing with you guys today, okay? But in this situation, we looked at this business, and the first thing we looked at with them is we understand if you run an optician's business, is that all the money, all the sales comes from eye tests. That's not literally true, because some people do occasionally come in at eye test and buy stuff, but broadly speaking, to drive the business, if you run an optician's business, you've got to get people in to have an eye test. And when you have an eye test in their business, what people do on average, the spend was £500. Now, if you're an optician's business, the margin is very high, okay? So on a £500 sale, they're making their gross profit is something close to £400, okay, 76, 78% margin, so really business. So all we've got to do to get £250,000 of surplus cash is work out how many more sales they need, and that's what we're doing here today, all right? How many more sales do you need? And all we've got to do to work the sum out there, if I've got my phone, I'll do it for you here now, I'll do it now. So I get the calculator out on the phone, you could do this. So in their case, they are chasing £250,000. Okay, do the sums, it'd be helpful to the sums because you're working it through is easier. So they want £250 of surplus cash over and above what the business is currently generating, yeah? And each sale, on average, that they generate is generating, in their case, £375 of margin. So I'm going to take £250,000 and divide it by 375. And the answer you've got is 666, okay? Which I'm then going to do, I'm going to then divide that by 12, because I've got 12 months to do this, so it's 55 more sales a month. So if we can do 55 more sales beyond what we're doing now, then we keep the sales at the same level that they're at now, £500 sale, 375 gross margin. So all we've got to do is do an extra 55 sales a month. Now 55 sales, that's across a month, okay? And if we say, well, there's 4 weeks in a month on average, so that is 14 sales a week, okay? And the branches are open 6 days a week, so that is 2.3 sales a day, okay, across 3 outlets. So they say, well, fuck 2.3, we're going to do 3 sales a day, okay? So that is 1 extra eye test per day, consistently across 3 outlets, will generate 250 grand. Does that make sense? Yeah. Can you see why I say this is easy? Okay, because that's all we've got. Now, all of a sudden, this problem's gone from being a fucking big problem, how do I get £250,000, to how do I get 1 extra eye test a day? Now, which one now feels easy? Is there anyone, you know, if you're running an optician's and you're already doing lots of eye tests a day, how hard is it going to be to get an extra one? What sort of things do you think they did to get an extra eye test a day? Well, they didn't need to ask for referrals. It's even easier than that. Say again? No, someone just said it at the back.
Reach out.
That's all it is. Okay? This business has been running for, in their case, interestingly, literally 100 years. The brand's been around. So they've got loads of customers. Now, and not everybody comes in when they should. So their focus just came. So what they actually did was they employed someone, they employed a mum that one of them knew, whose kids had gone to school, and this mum came in from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she came in 4 days a week. Guess what she did? She rang them up. She just rang up the people on the database. So she rings up Paul and she says, hello Paul, it's Nigel here from Nigel's Opticians. Paul, it's time for you to come in for your eye test. You haven't been to see us for 2.5 years. We're a bit concerned about you, Paul. Have you got your diary handy? Yeah, is it a weekend appointment you want, or do you want to come in on during the week? That's fantastic, Paul. How about Tuesday at 3:30? Well, ding. So what's she got to do? 3 times, three centres. She needs 3 wins a day. Piece of cake. It's easy when you think properly about it. They got themselves in right old knots. 250 grand. Oh my God! I was going to 250 grand. Going to come. It feels like a really big problem. That felt to them like 10 grand a month of profit felt to some of you when you come in this morning. When you're driving this morning, you're here today. And I understand this fully because actually you don't know how to get to 250 grand a day. In the same way that I don't know how to bake that cake, you know. But actually, it's easy. Can you see where we're going with your business now? We're going to look and understand. You're going to have to understand what the average spend is of your customers. Some of your lines have been more profitable than others. You've got to get to grips with your gross margin. That's important. We could only do that sum because we understood the gross margin. If we didn't understand the gross margin, we can't do that sum. We're blind. We don't know what we're shooting at. But once we understand the gross margin, £375 a customer, we're already at break even or beyond. That's another key factor, because that sum only works if your fixed costs are already being covered. If you're underwater and losing money, we have to do a slightly different sum, because we've got to get you to break even first, but we'll deal with that if we need to. But at break even, once we know the gross margin, we know where you want to get to. In your case, what we'll do is work out what your average customer spend is, work out what your gross margin is, and what I would suggest in your case, we'll start at £5,000 a month. And we'll say, well, how many more customers do we need above what we've got now? So on the gross margin to add up to £5,000 a month, and we'll come up with a number. And then our focus then becomes getting that number. That's all we've got to do. We're just going to get that number. But now we've got clarity and focus, you with me? And we're going to know whether we're succeeding or not by a really simple measure. And when I started out in business, it was, as I said before, I was the first person, it was a big deal setting up my own business. And I'd had quite a successful kind of corporate career. And so it was a kind of big deal. I was walking away from a big salary and stuff. And we remortgaged our house, Sue and I, back in 2003 to give us some cash to see us through and give me a little bit of time. But the deal I had with Sue, and I knew nothing like as much as I know now about business and what it takes to be successful. But the deal I had with Sue back then was I had to move £100,000 from the business account into our personal account in my first year in business. And the deal I had with Sue was, if I do that and I move the 100 grand from the business account to the personal account, I can stay in business. And if I don't do that, I've got to go and get a job. I was still employable at that point because I wasn't prepared. I wanted a better lifestyle. The big driver for me was putting my kids through private school. And I really wanted to do that. It was really important to me to go to this particular school. But I couldn't do that working for somebody else. I had to work it myself. But the deal was I need 100 grand to come through. We had a very clear measure. Now, as it happened, it was August. I started in January, and in August was when the payment went through. That took me over the 100 grand. In truth, it was easy to get to 100 grand a year in a first year in business. But I was really driven. I was really focused. I knew it was all my fault, and I knew exactly how many sales I needed to get where I wanted to get to, which is why that is step 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just say my ignorance here, but with the break even,
yeah,
taking into account after you've paid yourself as well as a salary.
Yes. Yeah, well, yes, because absolutely, again, assuming that you're doing work in the business. Okay, if you're not doing a job in the business, then you can't take your recording to break. But if you're like Stephen does, he does the fitting of the bathrooms, so he absolutely has to be paid in that level there. All right, is that okay?
Similar question, really, but I've struggled with the word profit, really, as in, if I draw more out and pay myself more out my business, is he taking his salary or is that part profit?
Okay, right. So this is different, and these are different things. And for the purposes of today, I really don't think that's helpful for you to worry about that. The thing for you to think about today, this is about the money that comes into your bank account. That legitimately, and that the business can afford to pay you. Just to be clear, we're not going to rip the business off and fuck ourselves over. This is the money going into your account, moving from your business account to your personal account, that the business can afford to do without causing problems for itself. And we'll worry, once we're making that money going across, we'll worry about how we treat it. You do have to be cognizant of tax. We all have to pay tax. I think in many ways, I'm mapping out a little, it might turn into a book actually, but at the moment it's a little presentation. But I do think in many ways, the definitive factor in how successful a business, or indeed a business owner is the amount of tax that they pay. There's a lot to be said for this in actual fact, especially when you start to bring in VAT and PAYE and corporation tax before you even get to income tax. And because people can hide behind all sorts of smoke and mirrors about turnover and make like, but how much tax did you pay? How much tax did you pay? And we do have to be mindful when we get here. It's not in scope for today's session, because what I want to say is getting you the structure and the means to get you where you want to get to. The next stage, what about the tax on this? Where's it going to go? Because if you are
working out the average customer value profit margin, does that include my wage or not?
Well, okay, no. So, okay, so again, you get to choose. For today, you can almost choose, as it were, because obviously, if you put in 10 grand a month for you as a wage, in inverted commas, then all we've got to do is get you to break even. It's the same thing. You with me? If I take the 10 grand out and say, well, break even is paying everybody else but not me, so we're there, and now I need 10. That is the easiest way for us to do it, because the way we get the extra 10 is we know your gross margin, so we can work out how many sales you need. If we're not at break even, if we put the 10 into getting to break even figure, because in many ways lots of us would be happy. I mean, I don't really, and again, I've deliberately not used the word profit. I've talked about gross margin this morning and things, and because there's different ways. I mean, I take the majority of my earnings from the business come through payroll, because I just don't like enormous tax bills, and there would be, because I draw a lot of money from my business, but I pay the tax as I go. I pay AYE, and I like that. I like not owing big chunks of money. Now, and my accountant tells me every year that I'm paying, when the amount I'm paying in additional tax is quite small in the whole scheme of things, because there would be a slightly better way to do it, but it's tiny now. 20 years ago was a big difference. There was some lots of benefits 20 years ago in taking dividends and doing things, but the difference now is really quite small. And you can bet your bottom dollar it'll get smaller still in October when she gets back into the next bloody budget. So now, again, but don't worry too much about the detail and the semantics. Let's get up in the helicopter. We've got to get the business to break even, and break even plus 10 a month gets you a 10 grand profit, in inverted commas. Does that make sense? You'll find it by far the most useful way to think about it. So not putting your wage into the break-even number will make it much easier for you to understand what you've got to do to get where you want to get to. Okay, now we've got an accountant in the room who's probably cringing about some of this stuff now, but we're just, it's not an accountancy course. Okay, we do have to pay.
What we're doing today.
Yes, because this is about the fundamentals of how you build a successful business. Hope that makes sense. Should we go have a cup of tea? Is that okay? Yeah, we'll come back in 10 minutes. When we moved into this building, I hired 2 new people. A very lovely lady called Carice, who is our receptionist, and she's on a beach in Greece this week. I quite like the fact that someone that enjoys language, that Carice is in Greece, but that's where she's chosen to go, and that's neither here nor there really. But more importantly, it's Edouard. There's no O in Eduardo. And Edouard. Chef Edouard is also on holiday this week. Not, I'm assured, with Carice. So you're not, unfortunately, going to get to sample the fabulous. It's just been, what an amazing hire. It's just been fantastic. And the food he's producing is really amazing. But I won't go on about it because you've got a different lunch today. Which is very, there's a very nice cafe just around the corner. And it's a really great entrepreneurial business, actually. And they just opened their 3rd outlet only a few months before we moved in. And 2 lovely ladies that run that business. And so they are catering for us this week while Edouard is not here. So you will be properly fed at lunchtime. But it won't be from Chef Edouard, who will be back hopefully next time that we see you here. So we've covered off 2 of the 7 steps. So step number 1 was...
It's all your fault.
Step number 2 is...
So, Jamie, yes.
So we work out how many steps. That's what we're going to do. And this afternoon we're going to do this. Once I've walked through the 7 steps, we're going to do these steps. So you will have a good understanding of how many sales you need. So there it is on the sheet there. Step number 2, how many sales to get to 2 grand a month of either profit or revenue, you get to decide. So then we've got to go to step 3. And step 3 is a little bit like step 1, okay? So this is an easy one. You just got to get your head around this. There's no work to do, okay? But it is critically important. And as someone with, I very much enjoy music. Music's an important thing in my life. And step 3 I've got the chance to just to bring that into the workplace, because step number 3 is all about you getting rhythm, and the rhythm is not what I bet you think it is. Okay, because you're thinking, he's going to talk about rhythmic acquisition. Well, kind of, but not really. Okay, because if I assume that you're all here today because you're not at 10 grand a month yet, wherever you want to get to, what I know is there's a problem with your rhythm. Okay, your rhythm's not quite where you need it to be. And the rhythm I'm talking about is not the output rhythm of rhythmic acquisition, it is the input rhythm of rhythmic activity. Okay, so this is the really important step 3. You have to recognize, that's why it's a mental thing, this, you have to recognize that rhythmic activity always, in block capitals, in a big font, always precedes means come before. Okay, rhythmic activity always comes before rhythmic acquisition. If we're going to get to 10 grand a month of revenue or profit, doesn't matter which one it is, if we're going to get there, fucking stool, if we're going to get to our 10 grand a month we're going to have to be bringing on some customers. That requires rhythmic acquisition. Rhythmic acquisition needs some rhythmic activity. There are some things that are not going on, and now instinctively you'll be seeing where this is, because some of you will know. You're already thinking, oh my goodness, he's right, because there is no rhythmic activity. Somebody mentioned earlier on about their business that it relies a lot on word of mouth and referrals. Somebody, I can't remember which one, one of you said that. This morning. That's a business that has no rhythmic activity. Okay, when you're dependent on other people referring you or doing stuff, you're not in control of that. There's no rhythmic activity. Rhythmic activity is you doing stuff rhythmically, either every day or every week or every month, the outcome of which is a flow of new sales. Some of those sales are the ones that you need to move you from where you are now to where you want to get to. So this recognition that there needs to be some rhythmic activity, and we'll get on to what that activity could and should be in a little while. And of course the reason, you say, well, why do businesses not have rhythmic activity? And the answer to that is usually pretty straightforward, because in my experience, business owners, it's very unusual that I meet a genuinely lazy business owner. Okay, most people that have set up their own business, there's something about us which distinguishes us from the rest of the population, and we're very capable of getting stuff done and doing things. And lots of people in business work very, very hard indeed. Some of you in this room, have got staff working for you, but you are the hardest working member of the team. If the cap fit, I'm going to pass the cap across. If the cap fits Michelle, yeah? I got the picture. Michelle's doing more treatment. She's there first. She's opening up. She's locking up last. She's the one that she has least holidays. She sets the least amount of money. She's working bloody hard. But, Michelle, what I know for sure is that the rhythmic activity in your business, in terms of to drive new customers, that rhythmic activity is a gap, it's a problem, because it's not there. Doesn't mean that nothing's happening, but the rhythm isn't there. So we've got to get the rhythm of the rhythmic activity. And that is step 3. Begs the question, of course, how do we get rhythm? How do we get rhythmic activity in the business? And the answer is in step 4. And now we're going right back now to something that I very fortunately discovered in the 9th week of my entrepreneurial career. So I started out in business on the first working day of January 2003. And I resigned from my job, where I was a fairly well-paid managing director of someone else's business. And I left that business, and the first working day of January 2003 was the day my entrepreneurial journey started. And I'll never forget that first day. I only had 3 children at that point, because Fabian hadn't yet been born. But Tabitha was a little toddler. She was 2 years old, or just coming up to her 2nd birthday. which is a bit scary because she's like 24 now, and about to buy her first house. But there we go. Life goes quick, doesn't it? But on that first morning, I can remember it really well. And we got up as a family together, and Sue loaded the car up with the kids. Cameron and Elliot were going to school. She was taking them to school. She took Tabitha with her, and then they were going off to some class afterwards. So I waved them off at the door about 8:30 in the morning, and off they went down the drive, waving cheerio to me. And I shut the front door behind me, and the house is kind of eerily silent. And I walked up the stairs to the back bedroom, which is the office I'd set myself up in to run my own business on the first day of my entrepreneurial career. And I went upstairs, and I said that what I remember actually more than anything was the silence in the house. And when everyone else has gone, when you've got 3 young kids, houses are typically quite noisy places. And all of a sudden there's this overwhelming silence. And I walked up the stairs, and I can remember this like it was yesterday. It's, gosh, over 23 years ago. I walked up the stairs, and I just remember this massive sense of, oh, fuck. That's what it was, because there's this notion that everything depended on me. I've got to make this work now. This is now it. All the fun stuff about talking about it and planning everything, that's all kind of gone now. I've now got to do it. This is the first day of my business. And I had big plans and dreams and goals, but now I had to roll my sleeves up and get stuff done. And I do think, looking back, I wasn't aware of this at the time, but looking back, I do think that my biggest strength in those early weeks and months of my entrepreneurial journey, my biggest strength was an acute awareness of my weaknesses. Because I had a very good kind of career in corporate life. I'd done very well. I built a very nice lifestyle for us. I was earning, I was 6-figure salary with some nice bonuses, and we had a lovely house. And I didn't want to lose any of that, but I did passionately, deeply want to run my own business, and I wanted more. Adam was talking about wants more and stuff, and I wanted this to happen, and I knew I had to make it so, and I knew that so many of the things that had enabled me to succeed in corporate life, climbing the greasy pole of large organisations, which I'd done, but a lot of the skills I'd learned and the things that I knew were not going to be very helpful as an entrepreneur. They're just completely different, and I was very acutely aware of this. And so I went out of my way quite early on to get information and input from people who had done what I wanted to do, which again essentially is why we're all here today, isn't it, really? Because some of you would quite like to build a business that's a lot bigger, and I've done that a few times and know how to do it. It's why we're kind of here. So in that regard, we're very similar, you and I. We're in the same kind of place. And one of the things that happened in those early weeks of my entrepreneurial journey was I had a neighbour. He lived a few doors down the road from me. His name was Martin Howie. And Martin Howie he's sadly no longer with us. He was quite old even then in 2003. He would have been in his early 70s. And Martin had a career in business and done a few things. And he took a real interest in what I was doing. And I was drawn to Martin because he was the only person that I knew at the time who had any experience of what I was trying to do. Because I said, all my friends and family, no one else had run a business, and Martin had, and he had a nice business and a bit of success, and so when he took an interest in me, I was quite kind of flattered and touched by that, and I was very, very willing to spend a bit of time with him, and he said to me, why don't I pop round occasionally for a cup of tea? And I thought, well, that sounds like a really good idea, because I'm sat here in the house on my own, having someone pop round occasionally for a cup of tea. It would be a really nice thing to do. And so we'd had 2 or 3 conversations, and I think it was the 4th time he came round, and it was in March 2003, which, Lauren was probably, like at primary school or something, or not even at primary school in 2003. Don't embarrass me and tell me that you weren't even born at that point. I think my point is, some of us of older will remember that the beginning of 2003 was the Iraqi war, and Bush and Blair had gone into Iraq. And on this day in March, what I remember is I'd had my lunch at home in my kitchen, and I'd put the news on, and it was the day that they toppled the big statue of Saddam Hussein in Baghdad. and the American forces had reached Baghdad. I couldn't tell what day it was, but that's the day this happened. And I'd had my cup of tea, and I'd washed up my plate and my cup, and the doorbell rang, and it was Martin, 'cause I knew he was coming around for his little chat. And we went, I made him a cup of tea, we had some chocolate bourbon biscuits, and which was my little guilty pleasure back then. And we went and sat in my lounge at home, and I had a little chat. And Martin asked me a question, and he said, "What's the most important thing for this business of yours to be a success?" I asked a horrible question, and I flipped and flopped around a bit. But I said, that's what I figure, one way or the other, I've got to get and keep enough customers. He said, "Nigel, I think you're right." I thought, "See you." He said, "So when you're getting and keeping customers today then?" I said, "Sorry." He said, "Well," he said, you know, you're a sensible person, Nigel. You've just told me what the single most important thing is for the success of your business, which," he said, "I happen to know is the single most important thing in your life right now," because it definitely was. He said, "Well, any sensible person would surely set aside some time every day to do that single most important thing." And the way he said it to me was so bleeding obvious. But I wasn't doing that. I felt really stupid. And I started a habit the very next day on the back of that conversation. And I started this habit in March 2003. And it's a habit that I still continue with today. And no matter how many times I tell people this, and I share this story, and I'm very open about it, and I know that there's still lots of people that I don't know what they think about it, because no one's ever accused me of lying, because I promise you I'm not. I started this habit in 2003, and I carry it on today. I am a morning person. I'm at my best in a morning. My productivity tails off the longer we go through the day. You know, once we get to 5 or 6 o'clock, I'm not good at producing high quality work. Once it gets to 5 o'clock, much better for me to wait till tomorrow morning, because if I do work now, it'll be half as good and it'll take me twice as long as it will first thing in the morning. So I spend the first 90 minutes of my day doing the things that will make my business more successful. And if anyone was to go back and analyse, you know, I've been fortunate enough to achieve quite a bit of success in business over the intervening 22 years. And if you're to go back and look at how we've achieved that success, what you'll find is it's been achieved in 90-minute chunks. Okay, and this is no surprise to anyone that knows me, and some of you know me quite well and have been around quite a long time, because step 4, and this is the way that we crack step 3, because step 3 is about we've got to get rhythmic activity, we've got to get rhythm somehow, we've got to get rhythmic activity in order to get rhythmic acquisition. And the way we get rhythmic activity is we start to do the thing that Nigel's talked about for 22 years, and that he attributes all his success to. We just got to start doing that, because I promise you, success leaves clues, okay? Genuinely, you know, the stuff that we do, the stuff that I do, none of it, this is not rocket science, okay? You know, it's relatives doing a series of simple things in the right order repeatedly that brings success. You know, that's the kind of spoiler for this entire day, because to get to 10 grand a month, that's all we've got to do is a few simple things. We've got to do them properly and repeatedly, and we'll get to where we want to get to. It's not difficult, but one of those things is this. Okay, because you need to find time in your schedule, and right now, and I know the answer to this, and I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but I fucking know, all right, that none of you in this room are currently doing your 90 minutes repeatedly every single day. You have not got rhythm, okay? If you take a single thing away from today, okay, step 4 is the most useful simple thing. Single thing to take away from today. If all you took away from today is this, and you did this, you will get close to where you want to get to in regards to 10 grand a month, whether it's profit or income. Okay, if you bolt the other bits on, if you recognise that it's all your fault, if you actually do recognise I've got to work out how many customers I want, and I've got to get rhythmic activity to get there, and the way I get activity is I carve out 90 minutes of my day, you know, at least 4 days a week. We only work a 4-day week here. It works for us. We've been working a 4-day week we're into our 7th year doing it now. It works really well. So for 4 days a week, 90 minutes, where you're locked off from the world, okay, your phone's turned off, emails turned off, the door's shut, no one can get at you, and you work on the things that will make your business more successful, oh, that's about bringing in those customers that we need to get the money to get us to 10 grand. That's what we're going to focus on, nothing else. We're not doing client work, we're not doing our bookkeeping, we're not getting distracted and doing silly shit. We're doing the things that will move us to where we want to get to. And doing the 90 minutes is step number 4, and it's the single most important step. When you add the 3 steps before it and the 3 steps after it, you turbocharge the single most important step. But this is what needs to happen. I'm sorry it's not more exciting. I'm sorry it's not newer. But it bloody works, okay? And that's why it's in there as our 4th step. So specifically, the action for today, and Andy will cover this off this afternoon because he'll go through these 4 steps again. And what you will do, if you are, well, I say, you know, you're free to not do it. It's entirely up to you. But if you're smart and you're serious about why you're here today, then what you will do this afternoon is you will get your diary out and you will go through it and you will look specifically at the next month in particular, and you will put these slots in the diary. You know, and if you're really serious about it and it really matters and you're thinking about Emma and Edward and getting them out of that cupboard, then actually you might do it for the next 2 months. And you're going to put it in your diary, and it's going to be hard-coded, and nothing can stop it happening. You're to go home tonight and talk to your significant others, the people in your life, people that message you, the people that ring you, and you're going to explain to them that you are on a mission. And I'm devoting 90 minutes a day to building my business, and I need to be uninterrupted. So you need to understand that between this time and this time, on these days of the week, you will not be able to get hold of me. Everyone in my family understands that. They know it's easy because it's in the morning. So my 90 minutes is normally from 7:30 till 9 o'clock-ish. I never have any meetings in the morning, so my mornings are usually free. My day starts here in the gym, so I usually arrive here around about 6:15. I have a session in the gym, I get showered and changed, and I go up to my office, and I'm usually in my office just before 7:30. My email is turned off, that tab is closed down on my computer. I never close down my computer when I go on holiday because I like to be able to just click the button and it has to be there. I can't wait while it boots up. But the email, the last thing I do at night before I've gone away home tonight is I close down my email tab. Because even having a little sneaky look at your email in the morning gets you onto someone else's agenda. Now, I've got the rest of the day to live my life on other people's agendas, but the first 90 minutes, that's my fucking agenda. Because I've got things I want to do. There's things I want to achieve. There's stuff I need to make happen. And I do it in that first 90 minutes. And it means I can emerge and I can deal with whatever challenges we've got. You know, I can even come and run workshops because I've done my 90 minutes. The most important thing is done. And when you get into the habit of doing that, you'll be amazed at how quickly you make progress. And things that you've been sat on and meaning to do for months and sometimes years, suddenly you've got the space to do them when you're working through. So that's the biggest thing. Yes, Craig, go ahead.
Is some plan to start what you're going to do
Yep.
in that 90 minutes?
Yep.
The night before?
Yep.
Or is it in advance? How can I do it?
No, okay, so, good question. And there's books on this, and there's modules in the vault, and there's all sorts. I mean, I've laid everything out. But I'll cover it off briefly. I've even written a book about it. There's an entire book about how to build your business in 90 minutes a day. So there's a few rules around 90 minutes. First one is you only do stuff that is about your business. This is on about you and your business and moving it to where you want to get to. And then again, there's a whole list in the vault of the things that 90 minutes are good for and what it works. So you can go and download the whole list because I won't remember all 37 things, whatever's in there. So this morning was an interesting one. This morning because we're going to be introducing a couple of new things in the second half of this year, and so a lot of my stuff now is about development of product and concepts and stuff. I don't do very much of our marketing anymore. I haven't done for quite a long time. We've got people that do that. They live and breathe our Facebook ads or our LinkedIn posts, whatever it might be. So a lot of my stuff now is about content or proposition is what I'm doing with mine. But if I go back and wind it back to when I was perhaps closer to where you are right now when I was building the business, then this was all about the marketing. It was for 90 minutes. So I have to have one session a month. I need 90 minutes a month when I'm properly reviewing my Google Ads results, for instance, because I've got to tweak that account. Now, in the beginning, it was like once a week on Google. I was getting Google going, but once it's up and running, I need to be going in. I need to be adding to my negative keyword list. I need to be looking at the things that I need to be adjusting budgets and working things through. And there's lots of stuff on that. So there's one there. Facebook ads is a brilliant one for lots of businesses. In your case, with what you'll need to be building relationships. There's key people that will send you business, and in my experience, because you're a bloke, you may be the exception to the rule, but most of us blokes are very bad at actually keeping in contact with people and nurturing relationships. It's just not how men are, in my experience. We're wired differently. I'd have no friends if it wasn't for my wife. And we've got lots of friends, but because she arranges stuff and does stuff and reaches out and we're going to go see this people and it's fabulous. I love it. But in business we've got to do that. So a lot of people are nurturing relationships, looking at we'll get on to the steps that are coming in terms of what you actually do, but it's always planned. And what I have a big A3 workbook, and I have little clouds. I draw little clouds and circles and things in my lists. That's why I've got the clouds on the page, and I know what I've got to get done. Like this week or in the next couple of weeks, the clouds are what I've got to get done. And what I do, I've got this little mantra: today ain't over till tomorrow is planned. So I have a little kind of routine or regime about how I leave the building, whatever time it is. Yeah, I mean, I snuck off a bit early last night to play golf, but normally when I'm leaving, it'll be kind of 6:15, 6:30. I'll leave here of an evening. But I've just got, it's only like a 3 or 4 minute routine, but it's like I get my desk cleared. It's like I get my big 90-minute workbook out. Right, what am I going to crack tomorrow morning? Because I've got to know what I'm going to do. I can't waste time in the morning working it out. But also what I've discovered is that when I tell my brain what I'm going to be doing tomorrow morning, the number of times I go to bed not knowing the answer and I wake up knowing the answer. And I don't pretend to understand how that happens, but the brain's an amazing thing. So I've got a high-level picture, kind of, yeah, yeah. But I'm feeding. What I've learned is so I've got my high-level picture with my clouds of the things I've got to get done this week. But then tonight, before I go home, I will know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning in my 90 minutes. And again, with 90 minutes, as you get into it, the beginning point is just to get into it and start doing it. When you start doing it, what you'll start to do is you'll start to get better at understanding how long things should take. Because the problem with being, it's like, good news, you're your own boss. Bad news, you're your own boss. Because there's no one holding your feet to the fire. And lots of things, like Facebook ads, for instance. I mean, you could spend every 90 minutes for like months just working on your Facebook ads. It's probably not sensible. You have to do some other things as well. So it's about knowing the amount of time and what you're going to do and things. And so you start to, as the more you do, you get better at that. So like with my Google Ads review, for instance, I've got 90 minutes, and I know the 6 things I've got to do in those 90. I've got to cap them off. They've got to do in 90 minutes. I've got to move on. Having end times and it'll become quite important. But I never go home without knowing what I'm going to be doing on my 90 minutes tomorrow morning. If that makes sense, it's there, and my desk is cleared, so it's ready for me. And my computer, whilst it'll go to sleep overnight, but all I'll do is wiggle the mouse and it wakes up. And my email the tab is closed. That's part of my regime. Close the email tab. So when I come in the morning, my head is clear. I have I have half an hour in the gym with Chris Evans on Virgin Radio. I have a super duper power shower that I've had into. It's beautiful. So I go upstairs, invigorated, ready to start my day at 7:20. I know what I'm going to be working on. I sit down, my desk is clear, and I am off to the race. I'm good to go, and we're off and away. And that's the best way I found to do it. Some people are not morning people, I get that, and that's fine. Some people, come alive as the day goes on. They're night owls, get that fully. So you'll do your 90 minutes at the end of the day. You'll operate differently. I get that fully. But finding that time and doing it. There's quite a lot of content in the vault on 90 minutes if you want more detail. And if you have any specific questions, again, I'll help you and I'll answer them. But there's an absolute action point there for you to take to get these slots in your diary. And I think the most useful 90 minutes are when there is a rhythm. It's like for me, it's 7:30 till 9, and everyone knows. There's a sign on my door. My door is shut. The sign says, you cannot disturb unless building is on fire, and no one comes in. My phone is on silent. It's the other side of the room. I've got 90 minutes. No one can get to me, and that's how you build, businesses. And it's the most important step to get where you want to get to. And as I say, and if it's number 4, put it in the middle of the thing because there's a flow here. Okay, so it's all your fault. Number 1, we've got to get this through. How many sales we need to actually get who we want to get to? Number 2, we understand the only way you get those sales consistently, because that's what we're not interested in, a flash in the pan and doing it for 1 week or 1 month. We want to do it consistently, so we need rhythmic activity. That's the recognition step through, that we need rhythmic activity. Rhythmic activity is important. I must have rhythmic activity in my business. That's the step. Where does that rhythmic activity come from? Step 4 is 90 minutes. That's what gives you the space to do the rhythmic activity. So that's why it sits under 90 minutes, number 4. And then we get on to number 5. And number 5 is an interesting one because we're going back to the numbers again. And this one scares people a little bit. I'm going to have to do a bit of work on this afternoon. And Andy's got some tools to help you with this. But step number 5 is you've got to understand how much could I spend to get a customer. And again, I want to try and avoid getting too complicated here, but I need you to understand the realities of life. Upstairs in my mastermind room, there's one message on the wall. And the message says, the worst thing you can do as a small business owner is to think like a small business owner. And I thought very carefully and long and hard about what I was going to put on the wall in that particular room. But this is the thing, more than any other, that keeps businesses small. And instinctively, until someone points it out to you and shows you, I think instinctively most people think that a big business is just a larger version of a small business, but it's not. A big business, when it's built properly, is fundamentally different. And the best example I could come up with, my dad grew up, my grandfather was a tenant farmer in East Yorkshire. And so he basically had 2 fields in my granddad, and that was what that was his life. You know, it was his job and his income, and everything came from these 2 fields that he rented near Nafferton. And the way my granddad, if I talked to my granddad about having 200 fields, he could not and would not be able to get his head around that. I mean, he's long gone from this world because looking after 2 fields was a lot of work. You know, and even as a kid, I do remember, going across sometimes in the summer holidays, and we'd go and help because it was all manual. It was all manual. The way those fields were planted, the way those fields were harvested was literally men and children and women in the harvest times walking those fields, picking and planting and seeding and setting. It was all manual. You have 200 fields, you don't do that. In very simple terms, you buy a combine harvester or you rent one for a week, but it's completely different. Very, very different. Harvesting 200 fields as opposed to having 2 fields. And it's the same in business. And the way small business owners think is, and it's, I don't think, it's just an instinctive thing in most people. But most people, when they build a business, they understand that they've got some costs. So I'll pick on Stephen for a minute, and I don't know Stephen very well, and I have no idea whether this is true. I'm just making it up because I know what Stephen's. So he fits bathrooms. So when Stephen's thinking about his business, he knows, because he's got the skills to fit a bathroom, and he's gone to college, or someone's taught him all the skills he needs, how to cut and shape and plumb and all the bits that you have to do to fit a bathroom. He's taught all these skills. So he knows that he needs a set of tools, and he knows what those tools are. He knows that he needs a van to get his tools and his materials to the job. He's setting up in business, so he knows that he needs a telephone number somewhere. He might need a website or somewhere people have got to come to. So there's some things that instinctively he knows he's got to have to make his business a success. But where most, and it is genuinely, in my experience, I've worked with thousands of business owners, so many business owners, especially at the formative stages in their business. The thing they overlook, that they know, I've got to spend some money on some tools, I've got to buy a van, I've got to have a website, I've got to have a telephone number that people can ring, I've got all these basic costs here, but nowhere in their plan, and the number of plans I've seen people come talk to me, I've got this business, I say, where's your cost to get a customer? And there's nothing in there. There's no cost to get a customer. And this is, I blame Kevin Costner. And I've never met Kevin Costner, but honestly, when I do one day, I'll tell him, it's all his fault. Because, well, many, many years ago, before Lauren was born, Kevin Costner was in a film. And I don't know, you've seen the film, Lauren, it's called Field of Dreams. It's not a particularly amazing film. It's a wet Sunday afternoon watch, this Field of Dreams, okay? It's it's a strange film. Kevin Costner is a baseball coach, okay? And long story short, he sees a legendary baseball player who is now dead in his dreams, okay? And this baseball player tells him, if you build it, they will come. And he's a farmer in the middle of fucking nowhere in Midwest America, and he builds a baseball stadium, Lauren, in this film. Fucking bonkers film, okay? Because if you build it, they will come, okay? A few things happen, Lauren, and the climax of the film is there's a line of cars as far as the eye can see, and people are coming from all over America to this baseball field in the middle of nowhere, okay? Fucking bonkers. And in business, that's a fair description of the film, if you like, that is basically what happens in the film. And in business, it is not true that if you build it, they will come. And Stephen getting a box of tools and a van and sticking out a website and having a phone number will not get him to 10 grand a month of either revenue or profit. He won't get there with those things. He needs those things in his business, but they will not get him where he needs to get to. What will get him where he needs to get to is some effective marketing of some sort, and for that marketing to be successful and sustainable and rhythmic, there will be a cost. And that cost will come either in terms of time or it will come in terms of money. And in most businesses, there's a combination of the two. Okay? Oh, thank goodness for that. Now just let me off the hook. I'll just get my customers by an investment in time. And for some of you, you will be able to do that. For some of you, I mentioned time in terms of nurturing development. 90 minutes is an investment of time to do the right thing. It will definitely help. Going to networking meetings for some people can be a really smart way to kind of do that. But somewhere along the line, it's very, very difficult to do it without any money at all. So there will need to be money spent to get customers. And what's important is you understand how much you can afford to spend to get customers. So again, how amateurs work out their marketing budget is they just take I'll spend a percentage of my turnover. Almost as stupid as Kevin Costner as a way of coming up with what you need to spend. Not the way to do it at all. And we already know enough just from our first 4 steps to be able to answer this question. Because we know what a customer is worth to us, because we've worked out our gross margin. As long as our business is beyond break even. So if I go back to that optician example, we know a customer, someone coming in for an eye test, on average, I'm going to get £375 of gross margin. So that's someone's going to come in and go, okay, excellent. How much would you pay to get that £375? It's a straightforward thing. Think about it. Just imagine now, we'll take you out of your business for a minute and we'll put you in that optician's business. Okay? And you know that when people come in for an eye test, on average, not everybody, a few people walk out and don't buy anything. We did averages this morning, we know averages. But on average, they spend £500, of which £375 is gross margin. Okay, we're already at beyond break even, so we need to get, 66 a month? I can't remember what the number was on the thing. Customers. How much could I spend to get a customer? So the 375, how much would you spend to get 375 quid? Let's play a game, okay? Adam's going to start us off. No, Adam's not going to start us off. Actually, we'll leave that. Let me think. Elisa or Alicia? Elisa, yeah? How much would you spend? If I had £375 here now, Lisa, okay, let's just imagine. It's not true, just playing a game, okay? There's no real money involved here. But if I had £375 in my back pocket right now, okay, how much would you offer me for it? Let's play a game. Okay, would you pay me £1? Would you pay me £1 for £375? You definitely would, wouldn't you? You definitely would do that, yeah? Would you pay me £500 for £375? You definitely wouldn't, right? So our answer is somewhere between £1 and 500. So we've narrowed it down now. We're thinking logically about this. So we've spent somewhere. Now, we're not going to spend more than £375. I mean, that would be silly. It's not that special, this money. So we can actually reduce it even further. So now the answer is somewhere between £1 and £375. Let's think about it. You've got the optician business, chain of them, drivers to get £250,000 of new surplus cash for the end of the year. What would you spend to get an additional customer?
Good question.
I might answer it. Depends. Go on.
Is there any logic? What's the preferred percentage of your lifetime value customer you could contribute?
Okay. All right. So, well, there is some logic, but it's not the most helpful place for us to start. Like a lot of things today, I said to you at the beginning, getting to 10 grand a month is easy. Okay? Working out the answer to this question is easier. And the only reason you're all a bit stumped at the moment and not helping me out and not giving me numbers is because you think this must be harder than it is. You think I'm trying to trick you, and I'm not trying to trick you. It really is as easy as it looks. So Elisa would definitely pay me £1. Okay, let's keep going, Elisa. Would you pay me £5 for £375 a customer? You would, wouldn't you? You'd pay me £5. Would you pay me 10? You pay me £10. We're still nodding. Yeah, we're still in the game at 10. Lisa's still in the game at £10 to get that customer that's worth £375 on average. Okay. Now we're thinking about, would you go to £20, Lisa? Would you pay £20 to get 375? You would, wouldn't you? Yeah. Would you pay £25? Okay, let's go. Let's just jump ahead a bit. Would you pay £50? If I've got £375 here, would you give me 50? You would, wouldn't you? You'd give me £50. Right, let's stop there for a minute. So we've now got to £50. We'd definitely pay £50. Okay, and in the interest of time, I promise you this, we definitely would spend more than 50. You'd spend 50 quid to get this customer. So, but what this does now, for spending £5, is changing our numbers. Because if I spend £50 to get a customer, what is my new gross margin? 325. See what I'm doing here? So now we spend the 50, so now there's not 375 left, there's only 325 left, isn't there? Okay, can we see what we're doing here? Yeah. Now, the way we got to the answer with our opticians, so at this point, so we're starting to understand now the dynamics and the levers in the business. And what happens at this point, so we're starting to get a sense, but we know, but we definitely spend 50 quid to get 375. You don't need an MBA to know that you definitely do that. There's not a person that you definitely spend 50 to get 375. You definitely do that. Although it isn't interesting that most businesses don't spend 50 quid to get 375, but we definitely would. So what we then start to look at, well, what's the best way to do it? And as Daniel spotted earlier on, the best way for that optician was just to ring up their past customers, because we can probably get the 66 additional appointments we need just by ringing them up. So what we did was look at, well, that's a really good idea. And if you're going to do something, focus and concentrated effort is worth way more than effort. So rather than asking the staff in the branches who are not doing this job at the moment, i.e. ringing people up, and they've got to look after people in the branches, it's going to be a side of the desk job. What we'll do, we'll hire someone whose only job is to ring people up. And because the benefit of that is we've got concentrated effort on it. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's focused. That's her only job. She's not just like anything else. Her job is just to ring people up and book them in. So what do you think it costs to hire, this lady's a mum, she's got experience in sales and selling, and she's good on the telephone, so she's got background, but she's got young kids now, she's stopped working, but she's available to work 4 hours a day for 4 days a week. So she's going to work 16 hours a week to ring people up. We know the numbers we need to get to are not that massive. We only need to get 66 a month. And I've basically got 16 hours a week times 4, so I've got basically an hour a call. So she needs to get me one customer an hour. Okay, so that's what. Does that make sense? You with me on the maths? That's why the maths is quite important. But if she could ring up and get me one booking an hour, that's going to get me my £250,000 of surplus cash. Even at 325, it would get me my surplus cash. Because if we do the maths, you get there. We're working through now. we know enough about how much it costs to hire people, don't we? So does it cost more or less than £50 an hour for someone good on the telephone? Less than £50 an hour. Oh, good news, Elisa. You're going to get some change from your 50 quid. Okay, and the answer is when we work it all through, you know, she was earning something like £30, £35 an hour, French she hit her numbers, okay, and she's in for 16 hours a week. So what we did, I'll just do the maths again, making sure it's accurate on here, so I'm just going to go to my calculator. So she was working 16 hours a week, yeah, on average she was getting paid £35, which is £560, and what we were expecting from her for that was 16 appointments. That's what success looked like. So £560 was my spend on a weekly basis. For that spend, I was getting 16 appointments. £35 per appointment is what I was paying. Now, so that's a no-brainer. Now, so I've only got to take 35 off my 375. So my margin is now down to 340. Are you getting my sense? But we're going to give this a go. We're going to try it and see. Turns out she can do better than one appointment an hour because she's ringing past customers. She's very good at this. She's good on the telephone, and actually what she was getting between 2 and 3 appointments an hour. So it just slashed the spend down. But we got there because from a standing, I can't afford to hire someone to do it. Hang on, let's do the numbers, because the answer's always in the numbers. And we've got a decision to make about growing a business. All we've got to do is find the right numbers to tell us the answer. And sometimes, the more you do this, the more experienced you become and the better you are at it. Just like the experienced baker knows exactly what to do in terms of getting the cake to rise and find all the stuff and how to get it all nice and even. And there's little things and there's techniques that you do. But you learn those techniques the more you do it. Stephen is better at fitting bathrooms now than he was when he started 25 years ago. There's mistakes that he made in his early days that he don't make anymore. There's little tips and tricks that he's learned that make the job easier for him. And they're working their way through, and he's learned that through experience, and it's no different when you're growing a business. We're going to learn things and pick things up on the way, but this recognition, we're going to have to spend some money to get that additional customer. What are we going to have to spend? Does that make sense? So hopefully that will work through. Again, Andy may take you into a bit more depth on that this afternoon. So I want to get us to lunch in the next 20 minutes or so, and so I'm going to go into the final 2 steps. So there's number 5. So it's all your fault, number 1. How many sales do we need to get to 10 grand is number 2. We've got to get rhythmic activity. That's critical. Things have got to happen. And for the opticians, the rhythmic activity was, well, there's now someone on the phones 4 days a week for 4 hours ringing people up. That absolutely is rhythmic activity. And as a consequence, they are getting more appointments booked. And because they're more appointments booked, there's more cash being chucked out. Everything's fine. So most of us, when we're doing it ourselves, the 90 minutes is the key to get that. We've got to know how much we can spend to get a customer. And we start to just play the game to begin with. The reality is there is a scenario where, even in my business, so we pay currently now, we're currently paying over £240 in marketing spend to get a customer. Costs us 200, yeah, wow. So yeah, sorry? What it does, that inexorably is the truth of that. And we've got, now just to be clear, that's our average. There are some things that we do which cost a lot less than that. But ironically and interestingly, I can't get enough volume, because what I want is 300 new members a month, every month. And that's what our rhythm is. And we've got that. We have 12 funnels that are running all the time, and when you work it out, on average, 12 funnels hit to 300. You know, they're bringing in just under 30 person per funnel, each funnel, which is roughly 1 a day, because the funnels are working 7 days a week. So I've got a dozen funnels bringing in 1 a day, and some of those funnels cost me a bit more than others, but it's kind of working. And now I think, well, that's, gosh, that's quite a lot of money. So, well, it depends, doesn't it, what you're looking at, because, and it's true that I lay out the 240 quid on, and I don't get any money back on day 1, because when people join Entrepreneur Circle, almost everybody comes in for that first month for free. So in theory, they pay on day 30, but of course not all of them pay, because some of them leave. Some of them come in and out. I mean, some of them are in and out in a matter of hours. But there's a chunk of people leave in that first month, never pay any money. But some then pay on day 30. So I start to recover some of my 240, because I get £99 from a bunch of people that we brought in. And then the following month I can bill them again. Now again, if everybody stayed, that would be great, but not everybody does. I lose some more people. And the reality is, I get into month 4 before I get my money back. But the good news is those that are with me in month 4 stayed quite a long time. And so you absolutely would pay 240 quid. I promise you it's a smart thing to do. And the evidence is all around you in terms of what we've been able to build as a business. But there's lots of other people try to do the sort of stuff that we do. But one of the reasons why they've kind of stumbled and fallen is because they didn't get older. They didn't understand this. They didn't understand this bit. They actually got to spend money to get customers. Because if you try to go and run a circle without spending any money, it wouldn't be very big. That's the truth of it. It definitely would not be in a building like this. You know, it definitely wouldn't be filling my profit account the way that it currently is. They're hugely different. It all comes from this. And you look at any business, you look at any big business, and you'll find that they spend money to get customers. You know, you look at any medium-sized business that's sustainably successful, they spend money to get customers. There's no business in the fucking world that is worth having that doesn't spend any money to get customers. Well, if there is, it's a genuine exception, just to be clear. My point is that this is critical part of understanding what's got to happen. You know, Stephen is going to have to spend some money to get customers. But we'll work out where this afternoon. Okay, so we will sort that through. So that's number 5. Number 6, you're going to love the simplicity of number 6. Okay, so what was number 5? You've got to work out how much you spend to get a customer, yeah? Guess what step 6 is?
Find it.
Get the fucking money. There we go. Okay, step 6, somehow we've got to get the money. Because it's all our fault. It's all our fault. If we want to get to 10 grand a month, and we've gone through these steps, and we recognise I've got to spend some money to get these customers. Oh, I've got no money. Oh, what are you going to do then? Go play another game. If you're still playing this game, you've got to find a way to get the money. All sorts of ways to get money. All sorts of ways to get money. And for some of you, this will be arguably the hardest part of the 7 steps. But we're just looking to get to 10 grand a month. It's not an enormous sum of money. You will know the extent to which you are backing yourself. You'll know how important or not this is in your life. You'll know whether getting to 10 grand a month, whether it's profit or turnover, is this really important to you? Or is it just something that you'd like to have? Does that make sense? Martin Norbury's here today. Martin Norbury, he's brought his daughter. He's bringing your daughter to work day today. And some of you know Martin. He's a kind of well, he's been a member of, I've worked with Martin for many, many years, and he's an important part of my business and my team. His car's over there in the car park. At least I know you saw it. I think you're parked next to it. I happened to see you and your dad get out of the car, and you saw Martin's Ferrari, didn't you? I saw you looking at it. I wasn't spying on you. I just happened to be looking out the window, and I saw 2 people looking at Martin's car, and it was you 2. And I think, because Martin's coming his Ferrari today. And, oh fuck, I just thought where I was going with this. There's a reason why I was going with Martin's Ferrari. There was a point to this. Oh, I know, yeah, I said. So, like, but it's important. And we use Martin's Ferrari as it's a symbol. It's not about the Ferrari, okay? It's a symbol. Okay, for me, at that point in my life, my kind of symbol was I wanted to send my kids to Solihull School. And I realised I couldn't do it if I was working for somebody else. The school fees were such that I wasn't going to be able to make it happen. Not if I preserved the other things in our lifestyle that I wanted. Does that make sense? Because I've got 4 kids, you know, and you work it out, it's 20 grand a year, you know, after tax. So that's 80 grand, you know, so that's 150, 160 grand before tax. So for 160 grand, all I've got is my kids in school. I've got nowhere to live and nothing to eat. So fuck, you know, I need to be earning 300, 400 grand a year. That's difficult working for somebody else. It's not impossible. And this is 20 years ago, by the way, 22 years ago. So this was my trigger. This was my realisation. And use your thing. If that is important to you, then you have to do things. You know, if Emma and Edward are in the cupboard, that's a horrible thought. There's nothing Craig wouldn't do to get his kids out of that cupboard if that was the situation. All he's got to do here, his kids are not in the cupboard, just got to get some money. But we know how much money because we've done number 5. We've got to get the money, and interesting to get some money. And the good news is you don't need a huge amount of money. I'll try and do this quickly and briefly. But when it's about money for marketing, there's a thing. There's a cycle of cash flow. So, for me, I'll use my business. It's easy. I don't want to scare with the numbers. So again, we'll use our calculator again. You might use a calculator. So I want to bring in 300 members into EC a month, and I'm prepared to pay £240 to bring those customers in. So that means my marketing spend for the month is £72,000 on marketing. Okay. Now you shake your head. Okay, just to be clear, I didn't go from zero to £72,000. That's really, really important. Okay, and this is not, I big Billy Big Bollocks. That's not what this is. I got to 72 grand, having from 70, from 65, from 60, from 50. I've been doing this a long time to get to £72,000. That's really important. It started at £1,000. Okay, there was a very interesting, slight tangent. When I was in that back bedroom at home, this is in like 2004, so I've been going about a year, and there's a guy lives in my village, and he did websites, and I called him up and asked him. His name was John Harper, and I needed him to build me a website. And this is 2004. Things are a bit different to what they were now. And he came round to my office, and I left him working upstairs in my office, and because there were 2 desks in there, because I was ambitious. I knew someone would come and work with me at some point. And John was sat at this desk doing a bit of work, and on my desk, I'd left printed out all my Google reports for that month. And I forget the precise numbers, but I was probably at that point spending probably like 10 grand a month or something on Google. Because Google back then was like having your own cash machine. I'd put 100 quid a day into Google, I'd get like £1,000 out. It was amazing. And John saw these Google reports on my desk, and he saw that I spent like 10 grand on Google. And his response, it's very interesting. Worst thing you can do as a small business owner is think like a small business owner. John Harper, he said to me, he just says, I can save you loads of money on that. He says, you don't need to be spending that much. And in an instant, I knew the difference. We were on different paths, me and John, because I was at the start of my journey, and I'm building something fucking big. And John was along with it, and he's building something really small, because he's focused on saving cost. And I just want customers. I was wanting to find more ways to pay Google money, because every time I give Google £100, I'm getting £1,000 back. And that literally is what happening. When that is happening, and you just want to find more ways to give Google £100. The last thing I do is bring it back and stop working through. But going back to me, and so I started very small is my point, but we'll do the numbers now because they're real numbers. Broadly speaking, 72 grand on marketing costs a month. Now, what I said to you before is I get that money back and a little bit more in month 4, okay? So I've got to wait 4 months for this, okay? So in my case, just to be clear, if I assume I've got 72 grand a month and I've got 4 months, so the money I need to rhythmically and sustainably build my business is £288,000, okay? Now that sounds like a lot of money in this room, I get that fully. Just to be clear, I told you earlier on, we'll do 12 million quid this year. So let's just work out what that is as a percentage, just out of interest. So 12 million pounds. This is slightly, whoops a minute. So £100, 100 divided by 12 million times by 288,000, I say? That was number, wasn't it? 28,000 equals 2.4%. Okay, so £280,000 is 2.4% of my turnover. Now, 2.4% is like a very small amount, isn't it? Just numbers, just maths again, doing the numbers, got to understand the numbers. And I'm not saying 2.4% is the right number, by the way, but I'm just, but where we're at, I'm just putting it in context of why 288,000 isn't very much. Yeah, and that's not, just to be clear, the 288,000, that's not what we're spending on a monthly basis. That's the 4-month spend. So what I need to do is find 288,000 in my case, which is just 2% of my turnover, and I put that in my marketing pot, and I don't need any more money ever, because what happens is I spent £72,000 of it in month 1, I spent £72,000 of it in month 2, I spent 72 in month 3, and I spent 79 in month 4. By month 5, that pot's been replenished because the income from the first have come back in. So now I just spend the money that's come back in. So does that make sense? So I've put the 2A in, and I just cycle that capital round and round. Now, the mistake I may have made here is by using my number because it's kind of scared you all because it's big. But that number could be like £1,000. For some of you, I could put £1,000 into marketing and I spend it, and when the income comes back in, the first thing I do is repay that £1,000. So it's that pot's always there to cycle round. Then you don't need any money for marketing, but you can spend that £1,000 every month. For some of you, it might be a bigger number, but it's just that's the 1,000. I've put that money, not getting it back ever. But that's okay because I had it all in there. But what it's doing is funding all the profit and all the growth. Does that make sense? And it goes through. So it's just about different ways of thinking about things. You don't need to find 7, because what small business owners do, and they think, oh, well, in Nigel's case, he needs to spend £72,000 pounds a month. That's 12 months. Oh my God, that's £864,000 a year that he needs to find. That's not true. I need to find £288,000 once, and I'm just going to cycle the money through, and that's how we get to the budgets. So it liberates what we can spend, but it all starts with us understanding what we're going to spend, but then we're going to get the money. And again, we'll work this out on how we get the money. Lots of ways you can get the money. Lots and lots of ways you can get the money. Suppliers will extend your credit terms. If you've looked after them well, you've been in business a long time, you'll talk to them and say, I need to pay you late. I need an extra month for the next 6 months. And all of a sudden, you've released a chunk of cash flow that's in your business, so you can run marketing. In some instances, genuinely, because there's like, when it comes to debt, there's like good debt and bad debt. A lot of people carry a lot of baggage about debt. They were growing up, parents, you don't borrow money. And borrowing money on things that depreciate and stuff is, broadly speaking, quite good advice. But borrowing money to grow a business could be really smart advice. Some of you are a £10,000 loan away from your ideal life. Well, fucking hell, go borrow the money. 10 grand, take it over 2 years. It's going to cost you 300 or 400 quid a month to repay that. Piece of cake. And now you're liberated to do the job, get the cash. When I started my business, the first thing we did, as I mentioned earlier, I did it. I handed in my notice in my job, and it didn't quite go how I thought it was going to go. I told my boss, I was the managing director of the business, and he owned the business. And I went to see him at his place in Chatton. I told him my plan was to leave. My notice period was 6 months, and my plan was, this was in the December, and I told him my plan was to leave next summer and start my own business. And we had a really good conversation, and I'm still in touch with him today. We parted on very, very good terms. But what he did, he said, once you're going to be impotent. I know you're leaving. You're leaving. The word will get out. He said, I cannot have my MD. We're on a strong growth curve. Listen, you go with my blessing, but you might as well go at Christmas, which was like 3 weeks away. So it's like some thrust upon me. Now, he paid me up with my contract and stuff. All was fine. But so in that 3 weeks, I hurriedly applied to the Building Society to remortgage my house because I could still fill all the forms in because I was at that point still employed. I still had this big salary. It was a fairly straightforward thing to do. So I drew 100 grand in cash out on my mortgage, put it in a savings account, and in truth barely touched it is what I actually am. But we had it there because I didn't want the thought of not being able to do the things and pay the bills and stuff was horrid. But effectively what I did was get the money. I got the money ahead of time. I actually got way more money than I needed. I did dip into it a couple of times, but not very much. But having it there was wonderful because I never had all the decisions I made. I didn't realize at the time. I didn't know as much as I know now. But at the time, getting that 100 grand, sat in that bank account was tremendous because it meant I made the right decisions for the business, not the wrong decisions because I didn't have the cash. So many businesses try and drive growth from revenue. And it's like, it's the hardest thing to do. And when you start to understand the numbers, it's fucking difficult, it's really hard. Get some capital. Borrowing a bit of money could be a really, really smart thing to do. It can be a problem if you've got bad credit histories and stuff and you've got yourself into bother and trouble. So I have to find other ways to do it. There's people that will invest in businesses. There's all sorts of ways to get money. You're saying you can extend some credit terms. There's things you can do. You can put on the things, just get a glob of cash coming into the business. You can look at propositions and offers and sales. If Michelle needed a glob of money to fund her marketing, she could do a promotion to her existing customers. She's offering something good, they're paying her up front for it. We could get a big glob of money into Michelle's business, like in July. you know, to help her then drive it through. I've got a lady, actually a salon owner, a very successful salon owner up in the Northwest. It's her 20th birthday of her salon next week. And she's got this massive promotion on, and she's got 20 offers. And she's going to bank 100 grand next week. Now, that's income that she's got to fulfill those services over the next 6 months and stuff, but there's a big glob of cash going to her business next week. There's things we can do to make, you know, that's harder to do for Stephen and Craig when they're fitting bathrooms. It's a bit more, but so it depends where we're going to go, what route we're going to go down. But somehow, if you're serious, because let's just be clear, getting to 10 grand a month of profit, you know, that puts you, I mean, it's extraordinary really how low the numbers are. Because like the average person in this country earns just over £30,000 a year now. I'm thinking, fuck. Like genuinely, like, you know, and I'm quite pleased I've tried to drill it into my, God, fuck, that's not a lot of money. You can't have a really lovely life on 30 grand. You can pay the bills and exist for sure, but you can't have a really lovely life. But then you look at the statistics, you know, and if you get to 6 figure, and that's what we're trying here, 10 grand of profit, now you're in the top 1% now. You're in the top 1%. That might require you to do something that other people don't do or don't want to do. You know, you're doing an extraordinary thing. I want to be that's what you're saying. If your number is 10 grand of profit, what you're saying, I may not realise it, but I want to be in the top 1% of earners. The top 1% of earners, they behave differently, they think differently, they do different things, including this. Now again, for some, the pennies might be dropping, they go, oh fuck, that's not me. No, I don't want to do that, I don't want to get the money. That's fine, because as entrepreneurs, we get to decide what the rules of success are, don't we? We get to choose how we work that through. So that's our step number 6. And then step number 7, da-da-da-da. You know how the box sets on, I've just watched, I like a little bit of telly of an evening. So I just watched Mobland. I don't know what does an Irish lady think of Mobland? Have you not watched it? Oh man, you've got to watch it for no other reason than Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan's Irish accents. They're hilarious. There's some really funny stuff. Actually, I've enjoyed Mobland. But my point is on mentioning. It's the cartoon character. It's the complete caricature of every Irish accent ever. Let me go for sure. And but I've enjoyed Mobland a lot. But like a lot of box sets and box series, you know, they end, and the ending in Mobland is not dreadful at all. And I did enjoy it and quite a lot, and I recommend it. But I mention it because the ending absolutely tees up the next series. Okay, so kind of if it absolutely flops, they've kind of ended it. But really, this ending is all designed to tee up the next series. That's what's going to happen. And in that regard, step number 7, okay, we've done the first 6 steps. Step number 7 is designed to tee up the afternoon. Okay, that's what we're doing. This is my box set end of part 1, as it were, and we're going into part 2. Because the final part in this particular series of this particular box set is step 7. And step 7, to complete your 7 steps. Okay, so I will just go back. So we've got it. Recognition it's all your fault. Okay. Second thing, we've got to work out how many sales do we need. We went through it with the optician to get to where we want to get to 10 grand. To get there, we've got to get rhythm. The way we get rhythm is we do our 90 minutes. What we're going to do in our 90 minutes is we're going to do some marketing. We've got to understand how much could we spend to get a customer. Yeah, Lisa went to 50 quid. I got it for 35. She got a big bargain. She had no idea how good it was. But then she's got to go and get the money. Without the money, we can't move forward. We're going to get stuck, and it's all our fault, so we can't get stuck. Once we've got the money and those first 6 steps are in place, the 7th step is putting together our marketing plan. You see what I mean about the box set now? Because that's what we're going to do this afternoon. Okay, we're going to put together your marketing plan. That completes us the 7 steps. The marketing plan has at its heart the 3 M's. And now those of you that have been around EC for a long time, now it's all coming back to you. But it's again, this is easy, it's not difficult stuff to do. The 3 M's, we have to understand who our target market is. Who do we want as our customers? We have to understand what our message is to those people. Why should they spend their hard-earned money with us as opposed to any other choice that they have? And then we work out what is the best media to take our message to our market, and we do it in that order. And fundamentally, that's what a kick-ass marketing plan is all about. often it will fit on a single page. If anyone brings you a marketing plan that is a dozen pages long, tear it up and throw it in the bin, because it's not that difficult. It's easy, is getting a marketing plan, and that's what we're going to do after lunch. We're going to look at what who your market is, what your message to that market should be, and what is the best way to, what the best media, the best format to use to take your message to your market. And that is what we're going to do after lunch. But that, for now, is part one of our, first break, remove this note. There we go. I missed that on the top. Thanks for that, Andy. But there we go. That's what we're going to get to. So is that making sense now? Okay, yeah? Because after lunch, you're going to be with Andy's going to take you through the marketing plan and pulling it all together. I will come back later on before you go home. I'm not going to miss for the whole afternoon, but I am going to skip out the next couple of hours after lunch. So you'll be with Andy. So any questions that I can help you with before we go to lunch? And you want to sit? Well, there'll be a chance afterwards. Yeah, sure.
Just a quick one. Basically, with you got a limited company which has two brands. One is lettings and one is property refurbishment and maintenance. So one is really easy to get customer, refurbishment, you just get a van that you basically get customers. The other one, obviously, because landlords usually have a bit of a relationship with the agent, it's a bit difficult. But would you sort of, let's say you do your marketing budget and you spend the money and you're not getting the results you want, would you sort of ignore pushing the marketing and just say, okay, for the letting side, I'm going to get more on the, naturally coming to me rather than pushing it? Or no, you just need to go back and figure out maybe I'm not spending enough, or...
Yeah, we've got to figure it out. It depends what matters to you. So I do recognise some businesses are trickier and harder to market than others. Landlords it's a very challenging market. This is not straightforward. It will be painful. One of the main reasons it's painful, by the way, is because whilst we know your market is landlords, what you can't do easily is either identify who landlords are. Right, statistically, there's more than one landlord in this room, but you've got no idea who they are. So we can't identify them. It's difficult to identify them. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. And even if we can identify them, it's difficult to communicate with them. Okay, whereas it's with a lot of the markets, it's much more straightforward. So you've got challenges there, and with any marketing, what we don't do is we don't suddenly go and splurge the money. We work our way up. So we test stuff. So especially this is true with like the digital marketing stuff. Even with the optician and that lady on the telephone, initially she came on a 2-week trial. Let's just see. We think this will work. But you come in for a couple of weeks, we'll pay you and cover all your costs, make some calls, see if we can book some appointments. We know that success for us looked like 1 appointment an hour being booked. In her first fortnight, she was averaging nearly 3. Fuck me. Do you want to carry this on? Let's put that now, let's take you on. So we did a test with things like Facebook ads and Google and stuff. We have to test stuff. So we spend a few £100. We don't go big. Can we, because, and again, in my case, for instance, if I give Facebook 240 quid, can it give me a customer? Because that's what I need. Does that make sense? So I said, well, let me give it £500 then and see if you can give me 2 customers. Because that's a proper, 500 quid's a better budget to test with. So it's a £500 punt. Now, if I can't get it, I've got to think, well, what's happened? Why haven't I got a customer? Is it because the ads I was running did I not get the leads? Or did I get the leads, but I couldn't convert the leads? Where's my problem? So we start to go back and forensically look and move it forward. It's all easy stuff, but we've got to we lose sight of it. And what we're not going to do is fall into the trap of a small business owner thinking, this is difficult. I'll just scale back, and you use the words, see what the market gives me. Well, I'll tell you now, we both know what the market will give you will be not a lot. So you'll stay small. And that might be okay. You drive to the business. If it's easy to drive, it's a bit right. But if it's not okay, we've got to find a way to crack it. And there are ways to crack it. There are ways. Some things take a long time. Andy's very good at this. He'll get into the sector. He's really good. You'll have a good afternoon, but you'll be doing work this afternoon. Go on, Craig.
Booked.
Yeah.
Would you split 50-50 initially on Facebook ads and Google ads, and then test that? Or would you do without it after that?
Right. So what I'd do, Craig, is I'd understand who your target market is. Okay? And then, and this is quite important, then I'd look at, well, what is your message to that market? Most people fall down on message, because most people's message, back to Kevin Costner again, most people's message is, I'm here, I fit bathrooms. That's a very uncompelling message. You know, it's not useless, but it's not very compelling. So the first thing we're going to focus on is, what's the message? How do we make you more compelling? How do we make, I forget, where do you live? What part of the world?
I've just done
Stafford, okay.
4 months with Mark Reynolds,
Okay, all right, excellent.
finishing the Knowledge Centre today.
Yeah, brilliant.
Too busy golfing some of my...
Yeah, okay, yeah, it was, yeah. Yes, I did, ask him who won.
Well, I think we've really nailed the marketing message, and I've done all the Sound 7 videos, I've recorded more, we're all on the website now, but I just need to now drive the traffic, and it's just, do I go Facebook or Google with that kind of...
Okay. All right. So it's important to go through the process, and I can see you've gone through all that process. Now, when we started Google and Facebook, what we're talking about really are two different things. So, with Google will be great for you for people who are looking for someone to fit their bathroom. Okay. So the people on Google will be much better quality leads for you because they are looking proactively for what you do. They have gone onto Google to search for someone to fit their bathroom. So in your case, what you're not going to do is skimp on Google. There is a scenario, possibly, I don't know right now, but we're going to test it, where Google gives you all the leads you need. And they're people that are looking for what you do. It's the sweet spot. You don't need anything else. What Facebook can be useful for, and you're going to be an interesting little challenge actually, because I suspect with Facebook, where it does work for you, it'll bring you people much earlier in the process. So I bet there's a longer lead time. I bet the people that respond to you on Facebook are the ones that are thinking about getting a bathroom or a kitchen done, but they're not actually doing it for quite a few months. I bet you have a long kind of cycle and stuff. Yeah, so these leads are not really equal, is my point. You know, a lead from Google will turn to cash much more quickly than a lead from Facebook, I suspect. So therefore, what you're not going to do is compromise on Google to fund Facebook. Does that make sense? So in your case, I'm going to absolutely get my Google going first because they're going to be the best quality leads if Google works and see what comes through. Because actually, that's going to be my best card. That's the best shot I've got, as it were. Now, Facebook could be, you know, but there's something else, other things that come in might come in before Facebook, you know, because there's certain places and people that would be very useful to you that could introduce things and fit, you know, people that need fitters and looking at them. So it might be that Google's number one. It might be that nurturing your network of key introducers or key contacts is number two. There'll be agents and things and developers. I mean, the lady that's just done all our kitchens here, we've got 5 kitchens in this building. When I say kitchen, like our tea points, you know. So I've got one on each floor, 3 floors. I've got a staff kitchen, that's 4. And then we put in our catering kitchen for Edward and the chef. So I've got 5 kitchens in this building. So now Tracy started out, she supplies, interesting, she's the flip side. She supplies kitchens but doesn't fit them. Okay, so now, because what she did was introduce us to someone who could fit the kitchen. And so she's designed and supplied them all, and now someone like Tracy could be really, that's way worth more of your time and some of your money if necessary, although, again, you won't need a lot of money, but to actually get people like her, that would be, does that make sense? That's more useful. So we've got to think it through, work it through. So it might be that your marketing plan has Google at the top, key relationships with these 5 people at the next, Facebook third, for instance. And then we start to spread because we've now prioritised it, we've worked it through, and that's how we'll make it happen. Is that okay? Boom. Should we have some lunch?